What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple. If you're looking to create more in your life, and if you want more of anything, it's not about doing more, it's about being more. So I'm excited you're here, and I'll see you guys on the inside. All right, you guys, welcome back. I'm super excited about today's episode of Unlock Your Freedom because I've got my really good friend, Josh Connally here. Josh is a very multifaceted fellow. He's the CEO of CBG Land Surveying here in Dallas. He's also the founder of NDC Legacy Outdoor, a phenomenal charity that serves veterans. And I'm going to let you guys hear it from the source here in just a minute. But I just really wanted to give a huge shout out to Josh and all the fine folks at CBG and NDC because they're a big part of my journey. And I'm really grateful to know phenomenal leaders like Josh and the people that he surrounds himself with. With that, Josh, welcome, man. How are you?
Hey, man, good. I mean, as good as can be, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful day outside, February, I guess now. So,
man, I'm still trying to figure out what year it is.
I know.
I'm still living in 2022 somehow. but there you have it, man. Well, I'm really excited to be back here together with you because, we've had the opportunity to collaborate on a few podcasts. And
sure.
I mean, for the past 5 years too, I've been a part of what you're doing at CBG, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. And man, I'd love if you could go back in time, 5 years ago plus, and how did we get started working together? And just some of that story would be pretty interesting if I could hear it from your side.
Yeah, well, I mean, wow, 5 years, right? Like that's like dog years in business. Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for a very, very long time. I mean, 20 plus years we've been friends. So I think it started with, when you started your journey as a coach and I was a business owner. And I think it started more or less with us just talking at social events that we were together at as friends. And it was pretty intriguing because we were in a place in business where we were incredibly successful, right? In the small scale and the big scale of things, we were a very successful small business and with very shaky legs, right? So that's where it always starts for an owner. I think that when we start a business, in a lot of ways, it's like a child, right? And we're really, really, really protective of our business and listen to you talk about some things, talking about solutions to stuff that you didn't even know I was having problems in. It was pretty neat to all of a sudden you start thinking down that road. I was also on a personal growth journey of myself, my faith, and so it kind of all slid in together that I was like, man, what do I do next? Right? What do I do? How do I accomplish the next 20 years of my adult life? I joke around all the time that, as I get older, I hopefully wiser. I just started really thinking about how could I put my business on a path to like sustainable success. And you became a big part of that, Kevin. I mean, we started the journey with just you and I, and then, I was like, well, big part of my business is sales. You're an incredible sales guy. You've succeeded everywhere you went in that aspect of your life before you started the coaching side. And so started working with those guys. Those guys in my sales team were really grateful for the opportunity to talk to somebody besides me. Yeah. So, and then you're like, well, man, this has been a raving success. So let's who's next? So it's a pretty cool journey that we started with me and just kind of a life coach and a leadership training that I needed to kind of take the next step. And then, 4 people here, added 2 more. I think this manager really needs it. And next thing you know, we have 25 of my 200 person company all doing leadership training with you. So it was a smart move on my part.
Well said. Yeah, the smartest move you've ever made in business was hiring me. Yeah,
right?
I concur. But seriously, I think that it takes courage to do something different, especially when you're winning. I mean, you guys built this $15 million plus company, and who says I need advice on how to run things better. And that's not what coaching is by any means, but I just think that there had to be some hesitation to hiring somebody to do something like that, because I know that you'd worked with people in the past in a similar vein, and I don't think that you got the results you wanted necessarily. And I was just curious what kind of hesitations there might have been.
Boy, was there. Yeah, I mean, we'd thrown some money away, with some group think coach type mentality, disc, a few different systems in place that, they come in and do a ideogram or whatever. We've done a couple of them. I think the biggest hesitation, I think it's probably for every owner, and I'll tell you owners out there, you should stop it, is ego, right? I think that when you start really thinking about the success of your business and you're like, well, what do I need help for? I've ran and managed and put together a team of, in my case, 200 employees. And by every metric, we were successful in land surveying. But you could see the fraying around the edges, right? We weren't a shiny new penny. We were one of the older companies. We had phenomenal growth. You're putting people in place that really don't have a ton of management skills. They were the best at their job, but with very little management training. We're just a little bit of flying by the seat of your pants as an owner. So I think the biggest thing is just really ego. Like if you sit back and you see where you could do better in your company, and then you get on this journey with the employees that you want to be the next, generation of your company, right? As a legacy or a generational type company. I've got kids. My brother, who's my business partner, has children. And we're trying to think about, where we go next. And you're like, well, if we step away, who's going to do this? If we step away, who's going to do that? Mm-hmm. And then you realize that a lot of those people don't trust you anyways, right? Like your management, as an owner, there's a little bit of disconnect from your top of your ladder to that mid-level management and even top management, really. Because you're a do as you say, not as you do type owner. And I was the epitome of that, right? So I think the biggest benefit for us as a company is that as I started changing my leadership skills and training and stuff, that when we were working together, the people that were with me on the journey really started to trust the process too, right? So I was reading the same books they were. I was talking to you twice a week. I would come in, I would implement stuff that clearly had been their idea, right? I had stopped taking credit for all their good ideas. So that helped. So when you do that, you end up building this level of trust with people. And you and I have talked about it a bunch of times. When I'd get stressed out, I kind of lean back into my default setting. And then I hear through the grapevine, or my nephew, who's the one that's brave enough, he's my operations manager. He's the one that's brave enough to tell me, hey, you're turning into the old Josh. So that's cool. It's cool to sit down and have like a reset button. Yeah. Nobody would have dared to do that 5 years ago. I have managers all the time pull me aside and, either tell me how much they appreciate the work I put in, how much the work the company's put in, or like, hey, you're screwing up, let's get back on track. So I think that's probably the biggest hesitation for a long answer to your very short question. Yeah. That was probably the biggest hesitation too. Do I want to give up that kind of control?
But that word right there.
Yeah. Control and ego, right? Hubris. I mean, there's a bunch of answers to that, but I think the ego is probably the biggest one. Yeah. You got to, recognize the problem. You got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. And then you basically got to turn it over. It's like my faith, right? I turned a lot of stuff over to God when I started walking with him. And so what was really good for my business was to kind of let go of some of that control too, Yeah.
So I think that you use the word trust in there a lot too.
Right.
And That's what it's all about, because leadership is influence. That's
Right.
the tail end of a John Maxwell quote. And he's the leadership guru epitome. And leadership is influence. And influence is the ability to build trust and inspire people to act on your ideas. Nothing more, nothing less. That's influence. And if I don't trust myself enough, then I'm going to have a hard time creating trust in other people. And to me, life is all about really learning to master the art of choosing love over fear. And when I'm reacting from fear, that's ego. And a great acronym for ego that I love is edging God out. Because when I'm in the ego and I'm reacting from fear, I'm not aligned with love. And John says it in the Bible pretty directly, God is love. And so when I'm aligned with love, I'm aligned with the best of me, the best I have to offer. And I'm in this place of creation. And when I'm in a place of creation, that's where I'm going to innovate. That's where I'm going to bring new ways of being into the world. And I'm going to bring something that has yet to exist. But when I react from fear, all I'm going to get is more of the same. And reacting from fear is simply working to prove yourself right about whatever you think is true. And it takes courage to create from love. And I'm so grateful that I got such a good example of that with you, because you took the leap. You're like, hey, I don't know the answers. And I've heard what the old Josh knew Josh, but so many times you're like, thank you. Thank you for helping, Josh see what better looked like. He was amazing before, but now he's even more powerful than he's ever been. And on top of that, he's become such a good model for the rest of us to follow that we feel safe because of him. And that's trust. And that's level 10 leadership. And that's what I've seen you really step into. And it's been really phenomenal. And before we get into some of the philanthropy stuff that you do, I really want to talk about that in just a minute. I'd love to know just what are some of the big personal shifts that you were able to create through our work, and what you've seen, professionally in your company as well through your leaders.
Wow. I mean, way to put me on the spot. No, I mean, who are we kidding? I like to talk about myself. So, I mean, I think the biggest shift for me was, I don't think anybody that's known me for a long time had any doubt that I was going to work for myself sometime. I was a terrible employee. And I grew up with the greatest boss ever, my dad, and he lived through being the worst employee ever. I was good at sales. Not good at anything else. My ego and just arrogance, right, were probably my two biggest stumbling blocks. And as I got onto this journey of self-awareness, right, and I think a lot of that has to do with really getting back into my faith. I know for a fact I wouldn't have been ready for this journey if I wouldn't have sat down and really grew as a Christian over the short period of time I was introduced to Sights on Christ, that journey. And it really made me want to be a better person. And then you start thinking, well, if I'm going to be a better person, then I got to be a better boss, because I spend, frankly, more time with my employees than I do with my family in a lot of instances. So let's start with them, right? And then, it's held. I feel like it's held over or rolled over into my marriage. I know I'm a better dad, very much so, work in progress on both of those accounts. Sure. But I think being grounded in my faith, and then going through the coaching with you, and learning to trust people for their genius, as you always say. I appreciate where you think my genius is, but I think one of my geniuses has been that recently, to realizing that I'm not the smartest guy in the room anymore. Where if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, I'd have laughed you out of the room. I've always had that arrogance where God gave me a beautiful gift to be able to talk endlessly about things, and it doesn't really matter what. Yeah. So.
Alrighty, you guys, it's time to pause for a very important cause. Wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to one of our sponsors, CBG Land Surveying. At CBG, they strive to make a positive impact through serving their community at the highest level possible. From their employees to their clients to their communities, CBG believes in service first and giving back. CBG is in the business of growing people and providing opportunity for professional growth, fundamental happiness, and confidence. And if you have surveying needs, I highly recommend them. They are a company full of amazing people, and they are just fantastic to be associated with. And we are grateful to have them as sponsors of our podcast on Unlocking Your Freedom. And a huge shout out to another one of our amazing sponsors, NDC Outdoor Legacy, where they empower and support veterans and at-risk youth by providing transformative outdoor experiences. NDC Outdoor Legacy believes in the healing power of nature, and they aim to facilitate opportunities for individuals to connect with the outdoors and themselves, fostering personal growth, resilience, and community. And a huge stamp of approval from all the people here at Unlocking Your Freedom. We absolutely love NDC and all the people that are associated with. So thank you for all the work you're doing with our veterans, and a huge shout out to all the veterans. Thank you all so much for keeping us safe.
I mean, I think that's where the biggest thing is I've learned to trust other people. I've learned to trust myself and the ability to like take a pause, right? To really think things through, where I was pretty fly by the seat of my pants type of guy. So I built a business on guts, and then I'm trying really hard to keep a business on strategic thinking and some of the stuff we learned. So that's pretty cool.
Well, speaking of genius, strategic is one of your geniuses, and so is Woo, and so is competition. So you're in your sweet spot for sure.
Yeah.
What about internally with the leaders at CBG and just the culture in general? What are some of the shifts you've seen?
I mean, probably if I had to, just a snap answer, I think that, the morale is better. The ability for people to trust that I'm not going to run them out the door if they don't agree with me, right? When my ego rears its ugly head, I operated on fear and not respect for a long time, and a take no prisoners, win at all cost attitude. So, and now my winning has changed, right? My why has changed. I got a family, my faith. So a lot of that has changed. And I think that's probably, I don't know if I answered your question at all, but I think that's probably what I've noticed the most is that I've learned how to trust those people. And I know they've learned to trust me too, right? Like that's the thing is when we go into these meetings now, it's way more collaborative, where we used to go have an hour and a half meeting. 1-2 people used to bring up topics or subjects. I talked over them. I talked through them. And then we just did what I wanted to anyway. So it was all for window dressing. Now that's not the case. And I think that the people that work for me know that.
Yeah, I think one of the really big, cool shifts that I've seen, being a fly on the wall, so to speak, but a fly on the wall that's involved.
I was about to say, you're far more than a fly on the wall in my office.
It's probably not the right metaphor, but it's not siloed anymore. Like so many companies get, where it's this us versus you mentality. Even people on your own team, it feels like you're fighting against. And you guys have become, instead of me versus you, it's us. Like, we're all in this thing together. Like, what are we going to do about this? And not the finger pointing. Instead, it's like, hey, we're all in this thing together, and we win together, we die together, and it's just really beautiful. And like attracts like. You're in this great place, and you attract great people with great ideas, and you're humble enough to listen to their ideas and see value in their ideas.
It's the first person who's ever called me humble.
Yeah, well, hey, man, we're all a work in progress.
Yeah. In the talking at the very beginning of this 5-year journey, right? So we had many, many conversations privately as a friend and as a business associate. And it was pretty cool. I'm going to cut to something else. It's been pretty cool to watch you change too, right? Like your growth in this thing. I mean, you were fairly new as a corporate coach and a life coach and stuff. And to see how much you've grown in the position, right? Like that we turned over so many responsibilities to you as a therapist, as all the things as a life coach probably entails that I'm not even privy to with our conversations with my people, our teams. It's been pretty cool to see that grow. It's been really cool to see that grow. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thanks.
As your friend, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you as a business owner that you've helped me weather some pretty heavy storms here in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's pretty cool.
It's my pleasure.
So I'm sorry, what would you ask me?
I don't even remember. You started talking about me and I got all excited. No, that's great.
I mean, that's our two favorite subjects.
But yeah, for sure. Let's talk about ourselves. But I'm just super grateful that you allowed me the space to be unique and to be authentic and to really decide what my style looked like and let it unfold naturally and organically. And I think because of that, we're able to really create some cool synergy, and we both went further faster because of each other. There's
no question about that.
And that's what it's all about.
Well, and I remember what I was going to say now. I was in the middle of talking and I was like, oh, wait, I should probably compliment him. No, I mean, when we were talking very early in this thing and you were asking me like, what do you want to do? What's the accomplishment? What's the goals? So this stuff, CBG, we're a land surveying organization, right? We're not doing brain surgery. We're probably not saving anybody's lives. Didn't feel like that when I was, 5 years ago. I feel like that. But my ultimate goal was a little bit of the gives back. Like that was part of my Christian faith and the faith of like, how can I do more with less? And then how do I make more to do more? And so it's been a really cool journey to, as you said earlier about the NDC outdoor. My dad was a big outdoorsman. He was a vet.
Hey, will you jump? I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to because I want you to go deeper on NDC and just really help everybody understand what that is. And like, I know the heart behind it was yours. And like you just mentioned, we talked to early on, what do you want? Why do you want it? The simplest questions. And one of the things you said initially, like, I want to find ways to give back. And I know you got started with Sights on Christ. And I'd love to go deeper on that too. Yep. And we're actually going to have a part 2 to this conversation with one of the founders of Sights on Christ, which tell me his name again.
Andy Mitchell. He's probably one of the neatest guys I've ever met.
Shout out.
He's a shot of fresh air on even a terrible day.
Yeah.
And he's unbelievable with these kids. And the foundation behind that is that we want to do, or they wanted to, I'm a very small part of it, SOC. That's a very big part of mine and my family's life now. They wanted to they all have a passion for the outdoors. So they all started hunting young. They were taken by uncles, grandfathers, dads, whatever. And they realized that there's a missing piece in there, that as a hunting community or an outdoor community, we're not taking our young people out anymore. So, and we're not exposing them to our faith. And that's one of our callings as a Christian, is to go out and baptize nations, whatever. So that was pretty cool on his part. So when we get to that with Andy, be prepared to belly laugh, because he's a pretty neat guy.
Yeah, stay tuned for that on part 2 of this, which will be coming out shortly after this. But let's talk about NDC. Okay, your baby today.
Okay, so my baby. So same thing.
NDC Legacy Outdoor.
NDC Outdoor Legacy.
Yeah, that's how you say
so it. Started with an idea. My dad was an outdoor guy. He brought us up in the hunting and outdoors and all things outdoors. We've kept that going as a family. My brother hunts, I hunt. And then we're big fans of the military, right? They're the reason why we have the things and the abilities and the rights we have, is because they've kept the bad wolves out of our backyard for many, many moons. So it started with CBG. Before we had the ability to create our own, we were hosting people at our ranch. We were hosting veterans. We learned from that there was a ton of opportunity to bring that to more and more people. So it was 1 event, 2 events. And so we started that as a very small way to give back. And then we got to the point where we were hosting like 20, 30 veterans a year out at our place. And we realized at that point that we needed to make it official. We needed to start our own charity, start our own ability to raise money for it. And we've had incredible success with it. I mean, it's one of my proudest Probably besides my faith and my family life and my family, that's probably my proudest achievement so far.
So give us what's the one liner or the cocktail party? Somebody says, tell me about NDC legacy.
Oh man, we bring the veterans to the outdoors for outdoor therapy.
So somebody listening, they know a veteran. How do they get hooked up with you guys?
Well, I mean, like we said, we're just started. So we're on Facebook, under NDC Outdoor Legacy. We don't even have our website built yet. So that's how organized we are. We've decided to put the throttle down on helping the veterans, and then we'll figure out the rest later. We had 3 events this year. We got a 4th one coming up. It's an inaugural turkey hunt that's coming up in the first week in April. So we're going to bring down some veterans. We're going to pair them with some country music stars. We can't disclose who those guys are yet, but we're pretty excited about bringing down people that we've heard of. These guys have heard of, listen to their music on the radio, and they're going to get to spend 3 days with these guys out in the woods hunting. And we're going to create an event for these guys. It'll be something that hopefully that they'll remember fondly for more than a lifetime,
So I know you guys have done fishing tournaments, hunting tournaments for the veterans as well. And, we were talking one time and you were sharing some of the feedback from one of the guys that had been out there, one of the veterans, and just how much it meant to him. I'd love to really hear any kind of success stories or anything like that you could share from.
Yeah. It's hard to talk about this because it's some of it's private, some of it's not. I
Sure.
mean, I'm fully convinced that we've saved a couple of guys' lives, right? Which is what we're there for. I mean, this whole thing started with, I think probably our idea was like, hey, I like veterans. I want to go hunt with them because I like listening to their stories. But then the 22 a day thing really kicked off, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, right? So we had the ability to really put a metric to how many veterans come home and take their own lives. And it was just unacceptable to me. It was absolutely unacceptable. So that's where it started from. I mean, that's the idea behind it. Somebody much smarter than me really put a number on it, which really fired up the communities inside of our country to realize that we were not doing everything that we needed to be doing for these guys that basically a volunteer army, right? I mean, they willingly sign a blank check to the U.S. government up to and including their lives for very little pay. And then they come home and frankly, we treat them atrociously. They should be first in line for every public sector job.
Yeah.
They should be first in line for every medical bill every medical care that they need. We have, and I don't want to turn it political as much as I want to, but we have to do better as a community. We have to do better as a people. We have to do better. So I think that's where it started.
I think it's amazing, and I love what you're doing, how you're doing it, and that you're one of the people giving back. I think it's so important, like you said, and shout out to all the veterans. Thank y'all so much for everything you're doing. Right. Like your ability to put your desire and willingness to put your life on the line so that we can live safely and complain about the price of eggs and milk.
Yeah.
But
isn't that the truth?
Man, I could talk to you all day. I mean, I do anyways when we hang out, but sooner or later we got to bring this thing in for a landing. So I'd love it, man, if you could, man. So what if somebody's listening and maybe they don't have a coach, they never work with a coach or, mentor in the business space, leadership, life coach, whatever you want to call it. Like who's listening should get a coach?
I mean, the short answer is anybody who has a goal, a dream, something to lose, right? Like doesn't that cover everybody? I mean, that's as far as for me, I think it's just so obvious being in it, where it wasn't so obvious for me being out of it, right? Like ego, the maniacal arrogance, for me personally, and then seeing it from the inside and seeing how much it makes a difference to your teams, to your family, to your whole life, the way you outlook stuff, the way I plan my future is different. Everything's different. Everything. There's nothing that your coaching hasn't touched in my entire life, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so when you ask me who should do this, I think that everybody should stop what they're doing, call Kevin Kepple Coaching, right? And see if he has time for you or somebody, right? I mean, it might be somebody's that their brother, there's somebody, they have a connection, right? I mean, I would like it to be you, but in the big scheme of things, if you have the ability or the want or a goal that doesn't seem achievable, why not get somebody in your team has only your good at heart? There's no bias. They win if you win, right? You can't say that even about a lot of your friends, but you get somebody in your coach and you get somebody who's in your corner. It's almost like going to a boxing match and having a cut man and a corner guy, right? So that's what you're there for. And I realized that I don't want to do life anymore without a cut guy and my corner man. So that's cool. It's a cool thing to see that where you can take that and how much more it means to all the wins. All the wins are more special and the losses don't seem so big anymore. So, it's a cool thing.
Man, well said. And no, thanks. I just appreciate your willingness to be here and to share and connect, man. I'm always better for having spent time with you. So thanks. Sure. And you guys, thanks for being part of this with us today, and keep an eye out for part 2 coming very soon to follow this. But also go check out Josh and all the amazing work he's doing with NDC Outdoor Legacy, as well as CBG Surveying here in Texas. And if you haven't yet, check out Unlocking Your Freedom, the new book by me on Amazon. So I would be grateful if you happen to buy that, if you leave a review. We love you guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, you guys, thanks for making it through to the end of the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with us. Really grateful to have amazing listeners like you. Thank you guys again for listening. We love you, and we'll see you next time.